Need a good cry today. Just pull Springsteen's "The Rising" and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's Into the Fire from The Rising, about the firemen who gave their lives that day and those that didn't. And so many of them dealing with survivor's guilt and all those folks that work the pile and the residual horrible problems that have come from that. Good opportunity again to salute Jon Stewart for how hard he's worked to make sure that the amount of money exists to take care of them. My friend Patty Steele joins us from New York. You know, normally when Patty and I talk, it's about how long she spends at Costco.
It does seem that way. You seem to always catch me there, don't you?
Yeah. She's a radio legend of the finest kind, and she's got a new podcast she's doing. We'll talk about it another time. But where were you that morning?
I was on the radio. I was working at WPLJ in New York, the ABC station there, and it was, of course, as you guys know, is this beautiful September morning, getting ready really for the end of the show because we kind of wrapped up around 9:15, and all of a sudden, when the first planes hit the Trade Center, it was kind of bizarre. I was in the studio alone with the guy running the board, and I picked up a phone, just because the phones were ringing, and this guy said, "Hey, I think a missile just hit the World Trade Center." And I said, yeah, "Okay." And I said, "Let me go check just to see what's going on." And I went to the ABC newsroom, and they said, "We haven't heard anything." And literally in that moment, phones started lighting up, and that's when it all, of course, unraveled. The morning show wound up staying on the air until, I don't know, maybe 8:30 at night, something like that. So we were on from 5 o'clock in the morning until 8:30 at night.
I'm just gathering all the news.
I'm trying to remember. The studios were at Madison Square Garden, weren't they?
Yes, right above Penn Station, which made it really a little terrifying because we didn't know what was going on. And we're also about a half a block from the Empire State Building.
Right.
So you feel like you're in the target zone and you don't know what else is coming. And I can remember standing there because they evacuated the buildings, but they didn't make us leave. And I guess it's because radio, one of the many beautiful things about radio is it provides kind of a lifeline for people.
Sure.
And so I remember standing there trying to feel if the floor was trembling at all, because I was, I didn't know what was coming next. And I had very, very small children at the time. I had a young baby. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old.
Right.
And I remember looking out the window at the Hudson River and thinking that I kind of felt like I could swim across if I needed to, because at that point, everything had been shut down. There was no exiting the city.
And it's funny because that's not just a New York thing as well, because here in Chicago, I was doing the show from the Michigan Avenue studio. We were right on the street. Right. And the days and weeks that followed, the FBI came in. They did an analysis of things, and one of the agents showed me a list and said, the Sears Tower, it was called back in the day, was the number one target. The Hancock was second. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, no, Hancock was not second. The Tribune Tower was second. The Hancock was, in fact, third.
That's where you were, in the Tribune Tower.
And we're sitting in the window.
Yeah.
So like you, I was looking out just waiting for somebody to come up with a gun or whatever, and I said, yeah, but that glass is fine. And the guy showed me a piece of paper. He goes, well, the glass is bullet resistant.
Not explosive
bullet
resistant.
resistant? What the hell does that mean?
That's like your phone being water resistant.
Yeah,
I want to know if I drop it in the pool, that I'm going to be able to pick it up a half an hour later and have a call. Yeah, no, I know.
And you need a bowl of rice. But that it's a universal reaction, I suppose. But I mean, it's different for you guys because you're in New York, and today you go through it again, right? It's rinse and repeat for the right reasons, but I assume it's very somber.
It is. It's funny because I was thinking about speaking to you, and I was thinking about yesterday, and I live at the top of the mountain behind my town. I live in Montclair, New Jersey, is this thing called the Eagle Rock Reservation, and it stretches along the top of the mountain and has a huge 9/11 memorial there because so many people gathered there that day and in the ensuing years. And in beginning yesterday, they blocked off all the roads to it, and they had it all set up because it's a huge thing because so many people in my county died in the attack.
Right.
And I drove through there before they had closed the roads, and I was overwhelmed with that. And you think 22 years later that you're going to have a little perspective, which I guess you do, but I started to cry. It was so, that moment, and I know so many people that feel this way, you kind of put it out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And these moments are a real memory of what you all collectively went through together. And you realize that you can put these things out of your head, but dealing with it in a way that doesn't bring back that rush of emotion. I guess it's a positive and a negative. You know me.
Well, it is. No, it is. It absolutely is. And I know how emotional
I'm
and
a
sensitive
history-
you are. Sure, and you're a history buff.
And I'm a history lover. And I think that the important part of the emotion tied to historical events is what allows us to kind of plan a path forward and also see how we're living our life. So it's not easy, but I think it's essential that we do create those emotional moments so that we understand where we came from, where we are, and where we're going.
I'm glad you were there for the people of New York and the greater New York area on that day, and I'm glad you're my friend, and I'm glad you're here. But I wanted to give Jane the last word before we run out of time.
Well, what struck me, Patty, is that you have a job to do, and the morning show stayed on the air until late that night, which is what you do, and this is what we do in the business. You have to get the information out. It gives people someplace to go and it's a feeling of security because you're still there. But as a mother's instinct, you looked across that river, you're like, I could swim there. Because probably the only thing you wanted to do was get to those babies, which is what a lot of people wanted to do. They wanted to go home.
The very next morning, I had to stay in the city that night, and I remember driving back down Broadway toward the radio station, and the cops, there were roadblocks, nobody on the road, but there were cops, roadblocks. And he said, what are you doing out here at this hour? And I said, I wish I didn't have to start to cry. I said, I want to be with my babies, but I have a job to do. And he obviously let me through. It was really, we had people walk up from the Trade Center who had gotten out of the wreckage, walked up and came on the air with us.
Wow.
We had people calling us from inside the building that we know did not survive because they were above the crash sites. It was it's something. I'm sitting here now with chills because you never get past that. And as a nation, I think it's important that we remember the impact that it had on individual lives,
100%. And also remember what it felt like when we were unified. Even unified in fear or unified in trauma, we were unified. And we can be. Thank you, Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
Come back and talk about what you're doing now.
I will.
All right, get off my show.
Bye.
I love you. See ya. That's Patty Steele.